Thank you. Please be seated. And I think we have Ms. Cogan. Ms. Cogan? Cogan, would you come forward, please? Would you mind just giving us your full name for the record, please?
Helen Margaret Viney Cogan.
And do you wish to affirm or swear an oath?
Swear an oath. I, Helen Margaret Viney Cogan, swear by Almighty God that the evidence I shall give to this Commission shall be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth.
Thank you, Ms. Cogan. If you could be seated. Thank you. Mr. Evans.
Commissioner.
Thank you.
Ms. Cogan, you've been summoned to appear before the Commission today to give evidence in relation to the matters before the Commission.
Sorry.
You've been summoned to appear before the Commission today.
Yes.
You were invited to make a witness statement as your evidence in chief.
Yes.
You've made that witness statement.
I have.
Do you have a copy with you?
Yes.
I have a copy if you don't. You've read the contents of your statement? You've read the contents of your statement?
I have.
You've signed your statement?
Yes.
And I think with one correction,
yes.
which is, I think the date on the back of the statement is the 12th of May when it should be the 14th of May, is that correct?
That's right.
And subject to that correction, the contents of your statement are true and correct to the best of your knowledge and belief.
Yes.
I tender the statement.
Thank you. The witness statement of Helen Margaret Viney Cogan dated the 14th of May 2021, bearing the identifier number GWC.0003.0010.0001 is admitted into evidence as an exhibit.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Evans. Ms. Nelson.
Thank you, Commissioner. Ms. Cogan, if you could have a look at paragraph 9 of your statement, please, and that's document, it's on the screen, and if you could have page 0002, thank you, down the bottom.
Yes.
You talk about when you were appointed, which was January 2006, and you say you were at the Gaming and Wagering Commission, which I refer to as the GWC, like you have in your statement, until the 31st of December 2011, and then again for a short period in 2012. The information that the Royal Commission has is that the short period was from the 18th of December 2012 to the 25th of February 2013. Does that assist your memory?
I tried to work out when that was, and I couldn't get information, but that sounds, because it was for a short period, and the short period extended somewhat.
So that's effectively 2 months, from 18 December 2012 to the 25th of February 2013. That sound
Yes.
about right?
Yeah, sounds about right. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, you explain in your witness statement at paragraphs 4 to 7, which is also page 2, that you had experience sitting on 2 other boards prior to your appointment to the Gaming and Wagering Commission. However, is it fair to say that those boards had really nothing to do with gaming or casino regulation at all?
That's correct.
And as a government lawyer, you say that at the time of your appointment you had, and the words you use are some engagement with both the Casino Control Act and the Gaming and Wagering Act, and that's at paragraph 14. Is it correct that that engagement was not necessarily related to casino gaming? It could have been other forms of...
Other forms, yes.
And did that engagement relate to considering specific sections of those acts in relation to factual scenarios?
Yes.
And did you continue to work as a government lawyer whilst you were sitting on the GWC?
No. It was, my appointment was after I had left there.
Thank you.
I think that's quite clear from...
It probably is. I probably just missed it. And as a government lawyer, had you had any experience with other regulatory agencies, other departmental?
Yes, I was asked and gave advice, asked for and gave advice to a number of entities, government entities.
Thank you. And you say that you were concurrent with the membership of the GWC, you were also a member of the Liquor Commission, is that correct?
That's right. The dates are in there or on the CV.
Did that
Yes.
commission share resources with the GWC?
Yes, departmental resources. Yep.
And as in staff or meeting rooms? What type of resources?
Meeting rooms, staff, IT resources. Yeah.
Thank you. And you recall that you were appointed after being approached by Mr. Barry Sargent informally,
That's my recollection. Yes.
and then you had a formal meeting with the minister.
Well, I had a telephone conversation with the minister.
Not an actual meeting.
No.
And during the course of that telephone conversation, were you given any direction by the minister as to how the GWC were to conduct business or any type of direction in relation to your work on the GWC?
No.
And when you were appointed when you had the conversation about your appointment with Mr. Barry Sargent, did he tell you what expectations he had of you taking on the role?
Not really. No.
Were you given before you turned up to your first meeting, were you given any assistance as to what you were meant to be doing?
I suppose I must have been told, how it would operate and what would happen, and I may have been given some papers, documents, but what they were, I don't remember, and if I kept them, I've thrown them out.
Were you given any instruction about how the commission functions worked in a practical sense, the day-to-day business of the commission?
Yes, I must have been told about, how often meetings would be, where they would be, how they would function. We got agenda papers and, supporting documentation before each meeting.
How far before each meeting? How many days before?
Well, my recollection would probably be about a week or so before the meeting.
And where were the meetings held?
Apart from a very few meetings which were held at Crown, they were held at the Hyatt Centre in the meeting room there.
And whereabouts at Crown were the meetings held?
Big meeting rooms. I don't recall precisely where.
Were any Crown employees or officers present at those meetings?
Probably, I'm not sure.
And they were the usual monthly GWC meetings that were held at the Crown premises?
Yes.
How many of those GWC meetings were held there, do you estimate?
I've actually been thinking about that. As I recall, probably no more than 4, 5, 6 during my time on the board, on the commission.
And why were they held there rather than being held at the Hyatt Centre?
As I recall, they wanted to, we were required to see the high rollers room, the gaming floor, behind the scenes of the gaming floor, and generally given a reason to see specific parts of the Crown premises.
Thank you. Now, in terms of any induction that you had, you said you might have been given some papers, but you can't recall exactly what they were. Is it fair to say that if you wanted to inform yourself after your appointment as to what you were to do, you'd either ask Mr. Sargent or you would look up the legislation yourself or you'd look at the agenda papers.
Yes.
Would you inform yourself in any other way?
No, I don't recall any other way that I...
Did you discuss the agenda papers with any other GWC member other than Mr. Sargent?
No.
And did Mr. Sargent have a formal role on the GWC?
No, I can't remember. He was always there at meetings. Was he, I mean, you can probably tell me from your information, was he chairman of the GWC? No.
Well, I believe he was. But
Yes, yes.
do you know if he had any role in the department at the same time?
He was Director General of the department.
Was there a deputy chair of the GWC during the time you were on it?
I don't remember.
In your statement at page 0006, which is, and specifically paragraph 31,
Yes.
you say you do not recall who was the chief casino officer at the time. You mean at the time that you were on the committee?
No, I don't specifically recall, but I think it might have been Michael Connolly.
So you do recall that there was such a role at that time?
Yes.
And what was the role that you recall? What did the person do who occupied that position?
Precisely, I don't know. I don't remember.
Do you remember whether it was a commission position or a departmental position, or was it unclear?
Unclear.
Did you have any sense that the chief casino officer could exercise any powers under the Casino Control Act?
I probably did, but I can't remember precisely.
Do you remember Mr. David Halge, or Halge? I may not be saying his name correctly.
Yes.
Do you recall him occupying the position of Chief Casino Officer at the time you were appointed?
Well, probably, because the name is familiar to me, but his precise position. I'm sorry, there's a lot I can't recall. It's a long time ago.
I understand. What about Miss Janine Belling? Do you recall whether you came across her?
That doesn't ring a bell.
But you recall Mr. Michael Connolly?
Yes.
And what do you recall about him?
That he was there at meetings of the commission.
In what capacity?
I'm not sure. Maybe chief casino or casino control officer. I simply don't remember what capacity.
And how did he interact with the other members during the meeting? What was his purpose of being there?
Was there and answered questions and whatever.
Answered questions from the other members?
Yes.
Do you recall who was the chief casino officer when you returned for that short period at the end of 2012?
No.
Did you have an opportunity to observe Mr. Connolly's interaction with Crown employees or officers?
No, not really. No.
Were you aware as to whether there were any operational meetings between department officers and Crown officers or employees during the time you were on the commission?
Not aware of that, no.
Looking at your statement at paragraph 13, thank you, which is 0003, page 0003. Paragraph 13.
Paragraph 13, paragraph 14.
I think it's paragraph 13. It's not the right paragraph, but in your statement, I'm just trying to find it. You say that you consulted the legislation when necessary during the term of your appointment.
Yes.
So in what circumstances did you consider it was necessary to consult the legislation? When did you normally do that?
Well, I would get agenda papers and there would be matters, several matters for discussion, and I would read them very carefully, and if I thought that there was some relevance to that agenda matter of legislation or regulations, I would go to the regulations and the legislation and read them.
I think it's the last phrase of paragraph 12 of the statement. It's the one you would.
Yes.
Thank you. Thank you, Commissioner. And looking at the agenda papers, it would seem to me that the business of the Commission when it came to casino gaming as opposed to community gaming was predominantly approving and authorising licences and permits relating to persons, casinos and gaming, and approving casino employees and approving gaming equipment and ensuring compliance with the rules concerning how the casino was to operate on a day-to-day basis. Is that your understanding of the predominant role?
That's correct, yes.
How did the GWC ensure that the casino was complying with the operational rules?
I'm not sure what its enforcement abilities were.
And were there inspectors that were made available to the GWC?
Yes.
And where did they come from?
The department, as I recall.
And where were those inspectors located?
I don't know. I can't remember. Maybe the department, maybe Crown. Don't know.
And as a member of the GWC, did you consider that your powers were limited in any particular sense? Was there any discussion about an exercise of power that anything that you couldn't do, any conduct or actions that you could not take?
No.
Don't recall that. Was there ever any conversation about the strategic direction or how you would approach regulation from looking at it from a helicopter view in a global sense, how the GWC would actually approach their task of regulating?
No.
And just going back to the operational rules, have you recently looked at the duties and powers in the Gaming and Wagering Commission Act in under section 7 and 8, perhaps?
No.
Perhaps if we could have the Gaming and Wagering Commission Act, sections 7 and 8, thank you. So section 7, as you can see, is about the duties of the Commission. I'll just give you a minute. And then over to section 8, thank you. And if we could have the next page 2 on the screen, please. In particular, looking at section 8 to subsection C, the GWC can formulate and impose prohibitions or conditions in relation to the conduct of gambling and the games which may be played.
Yeah.
Does that assist you to recall that it was required of the Commission to impose conditions on Burswood Entertainment Complex in relation to how they conducted their gaming?
Yes.
And also formulate policies?
Yes. I'm not sure about the formulation of policies. I would have thought that's probably a legislative function.
Do you recall that there was an express power in the Act for the GWC to issue directions to a casino licensee in relation to how games were conducted and
Yes, and
generally
that's
gaming operations?
that's what that says, and I recall that now. I have refreshed my memory on that.
Thank you, that can be taken down. And where were those directions housed during the time you were on the Commission?
I don't recall.
You said in your statement at paragraph 26 that you don't recall seeing a casino manual.
Yeah.
Is that still the position? You don't recall seeing a manual?
Called casino manual? No.
Was there a document called operational manual?
I don't remember. As I say, I may have been, and I probably was, given a lot of some documentation, but I read it because that's what I do, but I haven't retained any of it.
Okay. Looking at your statement at page 0006 at paragraphs 27 to 31, thank you. And under the heading support from the department, could I ask you just to elaborate on your statement in paragraph 27 that the department supported the GWC in the exercise of its functions? Can you elaborate how that was done?
That was largely administrative support. I mean, the department prepared the agenda papers and the supporting documentation, gave IT support, that sort of thing.
And in your statement, you also say that you assumed that the chair, Mr. Sargent, set the agenda.
Yes, I suppose I did. I mean, I suppose Mr. Sargent as the chair and other staff were involved in preparing.
And other staff. So do I take it from that you didn't take any part in setting the agenda yourself for each meeting?
No, no.
In paragraph 29, you refer to IT support. What IT support did you require?
My recollection is that at one stage the Gaming and Wagering Commission members were issued with iPads, and the agenda came on to the iPad. You didn't get hard copy, and certainly I had some difficulty at the beginning when we used that in managing the iPad and which buttons to push for what. And that's my recollection. It may have been no, it wasn't. It was the Gaming and Wagering Commission with the iPad use, not Liquor Commission.
Thank you. And that last sentence of statement of paragraph 29, the department was extremely supportive, helpful and useful, including in relation to IT support. Were there particular individuals in the department who were supportive and helpful, or is that a general statement about the department as
It's a general statement, but in particular, the executive officer of the department was very helpful and very knowledgeable.
And who was that?
Seema Saxena.
And was she knowledgeable in relation to the agenda items or in relation to admin support? Or both?
Both.
Now, in this section of the statement, you haven't referred to any delegations of functions by the GWC to any departmental officers or to anyone in the GWC. Were you aware that the Commission delegated its powers?
No? I can't recall.
I recall. Don't recall anything about any delegations in place?
No.
I can tell you at the time that you were appointed, it appears to the Royal Commission that there was a 2nd of February 2004 delegation to the Chairman of the GWC of all powers under the Betting Control Act, the Casino Control Act and the GWC Act. Does that assist in your memory?
No.
So as chairman of the GWC, that delegation would have applied to Mr. Sargent, wouldn't it? Do you recall that certain departmental officers exercise some of the GWC's powers to authorise games, especially non-casino games such as two-up or standard lotteries?
I recall, I think, that there were certain powers which didn't have to go, before the Commission or a formal hearing for approval, like two-up. But two-up is a casino game, isn't it?
Correct, but it's also a non-casino game, I guess.
Like the pub poker tournaments and things like that.
Yes. So you do recall that departmental staff did exercise some functions in approving licences of that type?
That's probably my recollection, yes.
And can you recall anything about how you would, as the Commission, come to know that had occurred?
No, it may have been an agenda item and a report as to what had happened.
After you left the Commission and during a GWC meeting on the 12th of April 2012, there was a delegation to the Chief Casino Officer to declare and amend games under the Casino Act, Casino Control Act, and also a delegation to the Deputy Director General. And by that stage, Mr. Connolly occupied both those roles, so as Deputy Director General and Chief Casino Officer. I'm telling you this for context because of what I'm going to take you to for December 2012 when you came back for that short period. And at that time that the April delegation occurred, there was a paper put up by Mr. Mark Beecroft, who at the time was a Principal Policy Officer in the department. And for the record, that is paper GWC.0002.0016.0056 at 0349. Do you recall coming in contact with a Mr. Mark Beecroft during the time you were on the Commission?
Yes, he was one of the department staff.
And how did you come into contact with him? What role was he playing?
I don't remember.
I'm going to show you an aspect of that paper that he put up, and it's a diagram. If I could have page 0349 of GWC.0002.0016.0056. Now this is the front page of the paper. I'd like to take you to the attachment 1, which is at 0353.
Yeah.
And this is a diagram by Mr. Beecroft that presents the process as he saw it for the casino lodging a submission to get an amendment or to get a new game. And the proposal is assessed within the department, and the department either goes back to the casino, or the submission goes straight to the Gaming and Wagering Commission.
Consideration, yeah.
Does that assist your memory with how matters came up to the Commission for consideration?
Yes, probably. To the best of my recollection.
This paper also refers to a department restructure that was going to occur in 2012, which was the year you left and then came back. Do you have any recollection about a department restructure?
Not specifically, no.
Thank you, that can be taken down. Now, when you returned as a member of the Commission for the December meeting in 2012, which was on the 18th of December 2012, there was another paper put up to the Commission in relation to delegations. We could have the agenda GWC.0002.0016.0082 at 0201. You can see this agenda paper is dated the 6th of December 2012, agenda item 8.2. And this was in the board pack that you were sent for the meeting in December that you came back for. Do you have any recollection of seeing this paper?
Only a fairly faint recollection that there was a rescission of existing instruments of delegation and new delegation. But, you know, the precise contents, no, I don't recall.
So this paper was recommending that there was a rescission of the delegation to the chairman, which had been issued in February 2004, which was in place when you were first appointed, and rescinded the qualified delegation given to the Deputy Director General in April earlier that year, 2012, and it was to be replaced by the chairman getting all powers and the deputy chairman also of the GWC.
Sorry, did you have a question?
No. If you just look at the first paragraph, my question is, in the sentence, as it starts, it says, following a review of the delegation issued to the chairman of the Gaming and Wagering Commission. Do you recall whether you were given any information about a review of delegations?
I don't recall any specific details.
The second paragraph talks about how it would be appropriate to issue a similar level of delegation of that of the chairman to the position of deputy chairman. Do you recall any discussion about why that was considered appropriate?
There was usually discussion of matters. Sorry, I thought I'd turned it off. There was usually discussion about the contents of the agenda papers.
Can you recall any specific discussion about this agenda paper?
No.
When you say discussion, do you mean general agreement or robust discussion?
Both. Sometimes general, sometimes very robust discussion.
And do you recall in what particular subject matters there was generally robust discussion? Or was it over a range of matters?
Range of matters, yeah.
I'll just take you to the minutes to show you that it was resolved that this new delegation be put in place, and that's GWC.0002.0016.0102 at page 0009. In the bottom half of the page, agenda item 8.2. Thank you. Do you recall if there was any consideration as to what the difference was between the role of Deputy Chairman and Deputy Director General?
No, I don't. There may have been discussion, I don't recall any details.
Thank you, that can be taken down. I want to ask you some questions about junkets. When you joined the Commission, were you given any information about the history of junket regulation that was in place?
Not that I recall.
In your statement at paragraph 22, that's Ms Cogan's statement, GWC 0003 001 00001 at 0005. Paragraph 22. In the first sentence you say, I remember general discussions amongst members of the GWC about junket operations and money laundering. Do you remember the content of those discussions?
Not specific contents, no.
You say those issues were of general concern to the members of the GWC. Is that a statement in relation to the whole of your tenure on the Commission or only part of it?
I think it was generally of concern to all the members.
Over the whole period that you were on the Commission?
Yes.
Were you aware that under the Casino Control Act that in addition to the Commission having a general power to make directions about the conduct of gaming operations under Section 24, that there's also there's also a specific power for regulations to be made in relation to junkets under a separate section?
I think I would have been aware of that, yes. I mean, I did consider the legislation and the regulations carefully.
Do you recall whether when you joined the Commission there were any regulations in place in relation to junkets?
I don't recall that.
There were in fact the Casino Control Regulations 1999 Part 3 in relation to junkets. I have that up on the screen, thank you. The Regs Part 3. One minute, thank you, Commissioner. This was what was in place at the time that you came onto the Commission.
Must have been.
You don't have any independent recollection?
Now that I see it again, I do have recollection of looking at these regulations.
Do you recall at the time that you joined the Commission and in the years shortly thereafter whether there were any approvals for junket operators put before the Commission?
I don't recall.
Thank you, that can be taken down. I'd like to take you to a particular agenda paper from the February 2010 GWC meeting. And it's a memorandum from Mr. Nick Toyne, GWC.002.0016.0001 at 0337. In the last day or so, have you had a chance to read through this particular document?
In the last,
Day or so?
through this agenda paper?
Yes.
No.
Do you have any recollection of this agenda paper? I might give you a hard copy.
No, I don't recall the specific content of this.
Thank you. Just handing the witness a hard copy of that document.
Thank you.
Do you recall working with Mr. Nick Toyne?
Yes, that name is familiar to me.
And in what capacity did you work with him?
Acting Deputy Director Licensing, I assume. As I recall the name and him being associated with the department.
Do you recall anything being done with the regulations under Part 3 of the Casino Control Regulations during the time you were on the Commission?
What's Part 3 of the regulations?
What I showed you on the screen just before, which was in relation to regulating junkets.
Not specifically, no.
Over the time that you were on the Commission, do you recall there being any change in the way junkets were considered by the Commission?
No.
Wondering, Commissioner, if it might be advantageous for the witness just to have a 5-minute break to look through this paper to see if that assists with her memory.
Well, in view of the answers she's given, I'm wondering whether there can be much
Okay.
useful evidence that could come of that.
Well, perhaps if we go back to your statement and specifically page 5, paragraph 22. In which you say, I remember general discussions amongst members of the GWC about junket operations. Having been now shown those regulations and seeing that there was a paper about it, does that assist your memory in what the general discussions might have concerned?
No, not really.
I'll move on, thank you. Did you have any contact with anyone in the department in between Commission meetings?
Perhaps occasionally, but not as a general rule, no.
So if you had a query about a particular paper, such as the one that I just gave you from Mr. Toyne, were your queries generally answered during the meeting?
Yes.
And did the author of the paper generally attend the meeting, or were your queries answered by someone else?
My recollection is yes.
Yes, so they attended the meeting,
Yes.
or yes, that it was answered by someone else?
No, that they attended the meeting. That's my recollection.
And so the author of the agenda item was the one who would generally answer queries, if you had any.
Generally, yes.
Was there anyone else who might also assist?
No, I mean, I think as a member of the commission, each member felt free to ask any questions that they might consider necessary to be answered by whoever was the appropriate person to answer.
Thank you. Did you feel like the skills of all the members on the committee were sufficient to do the job that you were tasked to do?
Yes.
Did you have any involvement in any of the financial management of the commission?
No.
Do you know who set the budget?
No.
Did you have any involvement in how resources were apportioned between casino gaming work and non-gaming work that the commission did?
No.
Were you aware of any role that the casino played in ensuring the integrity of players who came before the casino to play there?
Who came before the...
Were you aware of any role that the casino played in ensuring the integrity of anyone who came to the casino to gamble?
Yes, I think I thought that the appropriate Crown casino officers would ensure that people who were allowed in were persons of integrity.
And how would they go about that task?
I'm not sure exactly how they would go about that, but there's reference in the papers that you recently showed me about the federal and state police and other authorities letting in, particularly people on junkets. And there were inspectors, as I remember, or as I recall, inspectors in the casino who were looking out for unaccompanied minors, people who had been barred.
Can you tell me a bit more about how the federal authorities would go about the task of ensuring people at the casino had integrity?
No, I had no idea about how they went about that task.
Was that never discussed at the commission?
Not to my recollection, no.
And in that section, paragraph 22 that's on the screen, you also refer to general discussions about money laundering. What can you tell the Commissioner about those discussions?
Well, once again, I recall general discussions about money laundering and how the casino could be used to launder money.
And during those discussions, was it also discussed about how the Commission could influence that or not?
No, I think it was assumed that the Commission's powers were such that it may be able to influence that money laundering didn't happen.
So it was assumed that the Commission had those powers.
I assumed that.
And what made you assume that?
Because I suppose, I'd looked at the legislation, I'd looked at the regulations, and the powers of the Commission were to ensure that gambling took place legally in accordance with the legislation and the regulations.
And having assumed that, how did the Commission go about that task?
I have no specific recollection of how it went about that.
Nothing further, thank you, Commissioner.
Thank you. Mr. Dharmananda?
Nothing arising, thank you.
Thank you. Nothing from the either the department or Mr. Connolly's representatives. Ms. Cogan, I have a couple of questions. I may have misheard you, but when Ms. Nelson took you to the provisions of the Gaming and Wagering Act, and took you to that section about policies, I thought I heard you say that you weren't sure about the Commission's role in policy because you thought that was more of a legislative function. Did I hear you correctly in that?
Yes, you heard me correctly.
Can I ask you some questions about that? And we might be going back to jurisprudence 101 here a little, but are you aware of the distinction that is often drawn in modern corporate governance theory between high-level policy and strategy on the one hand and operational matters on the other?
Yes.
And the modern corporate governance theory tends to suggest that boards should be essentially concerned with policy and strategy in contradistinction to operational matters.
Yes.
When you look back now on your time at the Commission, where do you think the Commission sat in that dichotomy?
Well, between those two, beginning and end, because there were, I suppose, policy issues were discussed and operational issues were discussed.
Can I come at it in a slightly different way? Are you aware of you've had some experience in the not-for-profit sector. Are you aware of if you're looking at the charter, the operational charter, or well, just call it the charter or the constitutions, and the methodology of the not-for-profits, they will often distinguish between policy and strategy at one level, operational matters at another, but superimposed on that is what's often called vision or mission.
Yes.
Are you
I'm
aware of
familiar.
those? Yes.
Yep.
Now, if you translate that thinking into a statutory body of this nature, you have the same sort of thing. You have the operational, the policy and strategy, and then over and above that, instead of vision and mission, you have legislative purpose or object. Is that something with which you're familiar?
Yes.
Right. Now, one of the things that we are confronted with in this Royal Commission is a look at the statutory framework and the efficacy, if you like, of that statutory framework. And that must, of course, be informed by real life experience. And so I'm going to ask you this question. When you were first appointed, did you turn your mind to that question of legislative purpose or object, as opposed to the policies and strategies and the operational matters which are clearly set out in the Casino Control Act and in the regulations, being the means to which you reach the end of achieving the legislative purpose or object? Did you turn your mind to that?
I'm not sure that I turned my mind to that specifically, but I was aware of the stratas, I suppose, of
If as your term, which was five or 6 years in that first period, went on, did you from time to time turn your mind to those issues to ask whether or not the means that were being employed were aimed at or were going to be effective in achieving the end, the object?
yes, I think that's fair enough to say that. I did turn my mind, and because on the in the course of having commission meetings and in dealing with commission business, one naturally, I think, and turned one's mind to the general framework involved in the operation of the casino and the operation of other gaming matters. Yes, I think it's fair to say that certainly I did turn my mind to that.
And were, as far as you can recollect now, were there discussions among the members of the Commission about those sorts of issues? About how is what we are doing fitting into what we intend to achieve, or what the legislature has set us?
I think my recollection is that there were discussions, but probably infrequently.
And you'd be familiar with the concept of ongoing professional development, no doubt. Was there anything of that nature in which members of the Commission were able to engage? And you've been asked about training opportunities, but I'm thinking here of more of this philosophical, at the philosophical level of sitting back and addressing these topics of legislative purpose or object.
No, nothing like that.
Right. In paragraph 25 of your statement, you say GWC may have had interactions with WA Police, though I cannot recall any specific details. But can you remember subjects or topics upon which there may have been interaction between the Commission and the West Australian Police Force?
I think my recollection is that the police chased up reports of bad behaviour in the casino, unattended minors, barring persons who had been barred, that they were involved to that extent. And as a member of the Commission, or as members, we may have seen police reports on such matters.
Thank you. Ms Nelson, anything arising from that?
No, thank you, Commissioner.
Mr Evans?
No re-examination, thank
All
you,
right,
Commissioner.
thank you. Ms Kogan, thank you very much for your assistance. Mr Evans will explain to you the process which we have set in place. So I can't release you from the effect of the summons at the moment because there may be further questions that we will try to post them in writing so to minimise inconvenience. But thank you very much. And we will now adjourn until 10 a.m. tomorrow? Tomorrow?
Yes.
Yeah, 10 a.m. tomorrow.